If John doesn't subscribe.
Welcome everybody back to Prehistoric Wildlands. I know this video is a couple days late, but well, I did the best I could, and there's actually a pretty good reason for that. This build took me 10 hours. Today we are building a single habitat for Carcharodontosaurus. It's probably not one of my favorite species in the game. Definitely my favorite giant theropod. I just love Carcharodontosaurus. It's such a cool animal, and I wanted to do it justice and also develop our Rainforest section a little bit more. We've started a little bit on the jungle, but I wanted a more tropical, like mist and more colorful plants, which it didn't turn out exactly how I wanted, but it turned out alright. As you know, the Prehistoric Kingdom update happened recently, and it's caused a ridiculous amount of bugs. I don't know if it's just our save file, or if it's Prehistoric Kingdom in whole. To be honest, this is the only save file I've played in since that update. But, essentially, fences just don't work. The animals just walk wherever they want. So during this build, I actually ended up deleting all the animals from our zoo, and we'll add them back in for the final tour, because they just walk wherever they want. It's kind of annoying. So, yeah, and then some other stuff is like the animal information sign still being broken. The, I've had some glitches with lights, and, what was the other big one? I can't remember, but anyway, yeah, I mean, obviously, is it still public test branch? I think it still is, and it's an early access game, so I'll be figuring. Oh, and I'll do my little rant during this video that I did on the live stream about the staff mechanics, but I'll get to that a little later in the video. Right now, I'm just starting on this little path, developing the sort of loop that'll lead through, like, I'm thinking of like a nature trail that'll go past multiple habitats and encircle the lodge and lead back to the mountain. Which we haven't built the mountain yet, but we've talked about with Prehistoric PC and Jurassic about having this big mountain. And I'm continuing the river through this habitat and hopefully through more of the rainforest. The idea for this was I wanted a Carcharodontosaurus habitat to feel really expansive. So what I'm building here is access to an underground viewing gallery, kind of like the viewing domes in Evolution 2 type thing. That's built into a cliffside. And the other big idea for this habitat was that I wanted a shelter for the Carcharodontosaurus that looks like a temple that you'd see in Southeast Asia, like an Hindu-style temple, Angkor Wat type thing. And so yeah, this building here is just it's a tiny little building that's just access to that underground section. I will say, I had a hard time with this build at the beginning. I think building the exteriors of buildings is not very fun for me. I like decorating them, and I really like doing habitat work, but the exteriors of buildings feel monotonous sometimes, and this was one of those cases. Especially with the amount of styles, and like, I really like doing this collab project, but there's some things that's hard about working with other people and keeping consistent themes, you know? And obviously, Jurassic and Prehistoric PC have been great to work with, and sorry guys for delaying this episode, by the way. I think I'm mostly made up for it with a decent build, though. This is actually probably my favorite singular habitat that I've built. What I'm doing here is building some interior walls, which is something I haven't done in this series yet, I think. I just used a singular piece. But really, in a house, the inside walls are painted a different color or even made of a different material. Like, in my house, I have drywall on the inside and brick on the outside. So, you know, yeah, I'm just placing some of these flags that I made around. I think these actually look kind of cool and help tie things together. And just connecting this path. The path tool still needs a rework in this game. I'm thinking of... never mind. Anyways, yeah. So, and I'm using the wall murals. I wish we had more, because I wish we had like an actual tropical one. The Hell Creek is the best one we have. And I think this one works alright. Especially here, you know, if we do end up getting like more rainforest ones, I'll replace them later on. I doubt that's going to happen before the end of this build, though. Because we've actually made a decent progress in the series. This is episode, 11? And I think we were thinking about having 18 or 24 episodes. So yeah, I did want something to break up this building because it is mostly empty floor, so I'm just building a little planter right there. And you can see the Smilodons walking out, not the Smilodons, the Pantheras. I don't remember what species they are, but yeah, they just walk around a lot. I'm had to move them a great deal during this build, but I'm not gonna fault the game for that. As said previously, it doesn't really act as a game, and it's still a fabulous game overall. Just because there's bugs doesn't mean you should get mad at it. It's yeah. Anyway, I'm adding a window here because the building needs some kind of shape. It is quite square and boxy, but I think that's fine for such a little building, you know. And it is the only. I take it back. It's the only guest structure we're building today. I was gonna say the only building, but no, the shelter I built for the Carcharodontosaurus, I end up really liking it. That and the rock work are my favorite parts of this build, and the shelter is on the workshop. If I remember it, I'll put it in the description of the video. For any of you who have a PC and Steam, I will continue to recommend Prehistoric Kingdom because you can debate right now whether it or Jurassic Evolution 2 is better. It kind of just depends on what you like. But once it's done, it will be like an incredible game, and it has a ton of potential. Super excited to see this game continued. Yeah, instead of saying repetitive things, I might end up just not talking for sections of this, but what I'm doing here is I'm adding a queue because it's quite a small viewing gallery. Maybe you'd have to have the premium ticket, but no, not for such a large creature. Like, that would be a big attraction, but it would be kind of slow. And we have established, like, this isn't Jurassic World. I'd say it's more like Jurassic Park in scale. Well, not really, because Jurassic Park is huge scale, lots of open space kind of thing. So this is kind of, as far as guest numbers, though, we wouldn't have a ton of people here. It's kind of meant to be like a national park. And there are only like 10 rooms in the lodge, so I imagine it's somewhat exclusive. Maybe it's expensive. Maybe only some people know about it, and like, oh, maybe that's the thing. Maybe because they want to protect the Wildlands, which in the lore I talked about last episode that popped in my head, which Jurassic and Prehistoric PC agreed to that lore, I think. I think both of you did, right? I don't know. I know you both said it was cool. But anyway, if we're going with that lore, then the Prehistoric Wildlands exists naturally, and it's a kind of lost world scenario. But the dinosaurs can only survive here. If they're taken out, they can't live for some reason. But the biodome contains the Dinosaura. So the idea is, like, you know, they found a way to move the dinosaurs out of the Wildlands, but in the Wildlands, maybe there's, like, only, like, an exclusive club know about it, you know? It's not advertised to the general public. Maybe only paleontologists are allowed to do research here, and rich people, you know? People involved in the business for now. And then it's kind of an experiment to see if the animals can be contained, in a way. I don't know. Obviously, I'm coming up with this as I record, so that's not official Wildlands lore because I haven't talked with my building partners about this. I like coming up with lore for stuff. It makes it way easier to build. For those of you who know about my second channel, I'm a lightsaber guy, and I really like Star Wars. And when I do lightsaber duels, people often tell me, "Oh, it's not realistic combat," and I'm like, "No, it's not supposed to be. It's a duel. It's people fighting with lightsabers is people swinging cool glow sticks at each other. But when you add in a story and a reason, then it has a why, and it becomes an art form. You know, it's not really about realistic combat. It's about balancing to make it the most cool without it looking stupid. And it's kind of the same thing here. I consider this a bit of an art form, you know, park building, and also the making of the videos on it is kind of like an art form to an extent, you know. I mean, it really kind of is. It's work that comes from the human minds to say things indirectly by provoking human senses to see things and experience things, you know. That's a bad definition of art. But I do think that this counts as an art form. Before I get off on too much of a tangent, I'm just going to tell you about what I'm doing here. I'm trying to keep a lot of the same trees that I used before, and some zoo foliage like the bamboo, make it feel a little bit manufactured, that little touch there. Because bamboo isn't overtly, like, really rainforesty in the way that we're thinking about here, but it's a good space filler plant. And, yeah, I also, from the gardening tab, which is next to the foliage tab, there's a bunch of flowers in there that I used a bunch to really make this feel like a rainforest. We don't really have the proper pieces I want to do rainforest. What I'm trying to do here is mist because we don't have mist in the game, by sinking the, waterfall splash effect into the ground, and it doesn't really work that well unless you pause the game, because even if you sink it really far into the ground, it still moves. I did use it a couple places in here and like ended up hiding it in foliage bits, and I did put some on the main trail that I'll probably delete later and hide it a bit more, but I think the mist is super cool. When you pause time, it looks fine. Hopefully they'll add actual mist to the game at some point. I don't think it'd be too hard for them to do. What I'm doing here is I'm just sketching out areas of the park with snow. There's the wetlands, continued, the arid section where the jungle's going to be. And I mean, obviously, you guys can change this, but I feel like we're getting far enough into the series that we got to kind of figure out our space. Yeah, I just like being able to visualize that, you know? Anyways, so, yeah. Adding just a lot of individually placeable trees here. I did end up using the foliage brush some in this build, which is something I've done like a couple times ever. And I did want to put a bunch of hanging vines through here, but there weren't a lot of spots for them, and they're honestly kind of hard to work with pieces. And that's one thing that could be improved with the game. I can imagine, like, also for like ropes and even fences, to be able to have a piece where you select 2 endpoints and select like the amount of tension, you know? That would be really helpful to create stuff with like preset textures, like you could do like ropes and vine stuff, whatever. Yeah, I was just rotating this bit of the building because I realized it was slightly off. So yeah, just putting 1 dead tree, that makes it feel more alive because, to be honest, it does feel like here's the path and on your left and right are plants, so I like to put a little bit of overhang, which is also the purpose of the vines, but same thing. I did use the ivy pieces a lot here. I was going to use the moss pieces, but I feel like I want to save that for the mountain, which is supposed to be a little more alpine. Kind of like, for those of you who have read the Jurassic Park book, in that, Isla Nublar was mostly tropical, but the highland regions were a little bit alpine. And, yeah, I thought that was kind of a cool thing. Anyways, yeah, I did actually cut out a lot of this build. It was 10 hours in total, as I already said, I think. But anyway, right here is just a little garden, and this is by that restaurant that we have in the lodge, so the people who are in that restaurant can look out into this garden, and the people from the path, you know. Just a space filler. I didn't want to build out too much here because I'm hoping that Prehistoric PC or Jurassic will want to build in the Rainforest, because I'm the only one who's built in the tropical section so far. All 3 of those builds were me out of my 4, and I know I have 1 more tropical build I want to do, so I'm hoping somebody else will build something here at some point before the series ends. What I'm working on right now is the fence. You will notice I use the glass fence in the back, even though it is the this wooden fence all the way around. It's kind of a forced perspective thing. You never see that, and it will help it feel a little more open if there's not that solid barrier. So if there's a little bit of glass you can see through the foliage, it's not going to look like glass. It's going to look like the rainforest just continues. And I did have to block off the river on each side. I didn't want to put the actual fence pieces because they sink with the terrain and they don't look like they would hold back the water very well. I feel like you'd want something more metal and concrete. So that's what I'm just building here, a little custom fence real quick. Just using the mesh pieces. I'm not really worried about the Carcharodontosaurus trying to break this. I just don't really think it would happen any more than it would the normal fence. You will notice, by the way, I put that stone cladding on the other section of the fence, and I don't do that on the rest of the habitats. That's another thing of where I don't want to suggest other people to build. I want them to build whatever they want. I might add that in later, though. Because that really was only there for the purpose of the trail running alongside it, and I didn't want people to be able to see the habitat yet. And there's little gaps in this fence, so that was just covering that up by the base, and helped incorporate the nature into the build a little better, which I don't want to do that whole rant again that I did in episode 2. So, anyways, Actually, I'm gonna make a tutorial for how to build habitats in Prehistoric Kingdom, good habitats, if you want me to. Actually, leave a comment if you want a Prehistoric Kingdom habitat build suggestion, because I know a whole lot of you guys don't have the game. Not a lot of people do. It's kind of underappreciated, you know. A lot of people want to wait for the full release, or they just find the system challenging, or whatever. But anyways, yeah, tell me if you want that video. Right now, what I'm working on here is just the base for the shelter. Using the Adobe clay pieces, which I've talked about before, are really nice because they can overlap with each other without creating that weird glitching effect. So they're really helpful for creating bases of buildings, and you can pretty much make them any color you want, and they look good. They're just super useful pieces. They're like the concrete texture, but better. Yeah, they're literally just the better concrete. So I was looking at a picture of Angkor Wat while working on this build, just to get the temple facade, because we really don't have the pieces to build this in the game, which I was really proud of the results, by the way. It took me like 5 hours of the build was building this temple, maybe more than that. Maybe like 5 or 6, because there was a lot of trial and error I cut out. Again, due to us not having the actual pieces needed for that. And, this is my favorite singular building I've built, as I said, and that's why it's on the workshop. So I used mostly this stone texture that's in the modern set. I use this texture a whole lot. And I also used the bamboo a bit, but that's pretty much the only textures that I felt like worked here. So, and of course I used some other individual pieces like you see here that were added with the arid set. If you recolor those, they're good decals for buildings. And I was actually really happy with how this turned out. These pieces, that's the ones I'm talking about. I was really happy with how this turned out. I did not think it would look any good, and I thought I'd like put way too much of a challenge on myself to build this. But yeah, it's really nice, so stick around in the video for the end results. I did have some issues with the walls here in this section. It's really the facade of the building that matters the most, because that's, again, it's a forced perspective thing. That's what the guests will see. And so, it doesn't really matter what's back here, but I had a lot of issues with that section of the building in particular, between the facade and the main shelter area. And I was actually really worried I was off of scale here for the Carcharodontosaurus, but something I found useful to do is to use the T-Rex statue in the game to see where the animals can walk. I'm not really sure how good the traversable area in this game is, even though I now have like 109 hours in the game. I've built, let's see, 4 habitats for this zoo, and then I built Prehistoric Africa, and that was like 20 habitats, but I don't really count that because those were quick little habitats. So we'll count that whole zoo as like we'll count that as 5 habitats because it was split in 5 sections. So really it's like I've done 9 builds basically in Prehistoric Kingdom. And I still don't know the traversable area of the animals, how well that works, because I like an evolution too. I don't spend a lot of time looking at the animals. What I was doing here, I mean, I think you can tell what I'm building. You know the style of building. I had a hard time getting roof pieces. I think this one is with the shingles works okay once I recolor it and put other pieces there, but it's not ideal, you know. I need to stop saying, you know. If for those of you who are here during the live stream, you know. Sorry, that was not funny, but yeah, you will notice in just a minute there is a cut in this build where suddenly 1,800 rocks appear. That was the live stream, and I didn't want to download the whole live stream just to put it in this video because, to be honest, it's rock work, and the build is long enough. So if you guys want to know how I did the rock work, because I do think the rocks look pretty good in this habitat, if I say so myself, I will include that in my habitat builds. Maybe I'll make a poll for if you want the Prehistoric Kingdom video, but whenever I make a poll, you guys always say you want the video, because apparently some of you like watching my videos or something. No, but we'll see. I'm gonna stop ranting about that and talk about the actual build. I use this arid arch, which I agree, the texture looks super weird, which is why I'm gonna use the rock pieces, but I just wanted to have this shape and it was really helpful because I was also able to adjust that in a single piece to the height of the large theropod. So there's actually not much to talk about here, so I guess I could go ahead and do my rant about the updates. So yeah, I'll do that. So you have heard about the new update, I'm sure plenty of you have, and it has all the new staff mechanics, so now we can really actually play challenge mode and stuff. I won't be playing challenge mode, really, maybe once, because it's not my thing. But I did this rant during the live stream. Did I already say that? Okay, I did. The game, with the new updates, sandbox mode is no longer really sandbox, because you're still required to do a bunch of staff mechanic stuff to be able to build. Now, to be fair, I haven't fully experimented with this, and it could be some of this linked to this save file being built before the updates. However, there's still stuff where the game forces you to play it on its terms, according to its arbitrary rules of how a park should work. I can't release sauropods without going through the research tree to place the large hatchery, which was something I noticed while building this, was I can't place a large hatchery. And that's really, really annoying, because it takes away the whole reason I bought Prehistoric Kingdom, was to have an unlimited dinosaur park game, which I love Evolution 2, but it does force you to play on its terms, because Evolution 2 has a hard time separating the two things it's trying to do. Trying to be a creative park builder and trying to be a management simulator. And there's pretty easy features you can do to separate these. In fact, it's really the lack of features that we want in creativity. But they still force a lot of features onto us. It's gotten a lot better since the release of the game, and I applaud Frontier for that. But now, Prehistoric Kingdom might be falling into the same trap of, and now they're kind of giving away their tagline feature. I'm sure a lot of this will be fixed in future updates, which is something we can always say for Prehistoric Kingdom, at least until the full release. I don't know when that will be. I kind of hope it'll be a while, though. I'm kind of hoping for like 2 more years, because there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be in the game before its full release. And I hope it's still developed after that. Which is why you guys should buy Prehistoric Kingdom, to support the development of this game, because it's awesome. And, yeah, so... what was I just talking about? Yeah, my rant about the staff mechanics. So that's really annoying, and it affects this park a great deal. For one of my other builds, I do want to include another sauropod, and I'm going to have to put the brachiosaurus back in, so I'm going to have to do the whole research tree to place a large hatchery, which is just incredibly, incredibly annoying that we can't build exactly what we want within the tools. Obviously, Prehistoric Kingdom is not an unlimited game. There's limited stuff in the game. There's no fog pieces. There's not the architecture features to build this temple, but, you know, within what they offer you, there's not artificial limits, if that makes sense. So, this isn't meant to be like a criticism of Prehistoric Kingdom, because it's still my favorite game. And I really hope they fix this. I'm sure they will, but if they don't, that's a really major, major take back from it. So, what I'm working here now is the shelter area in the back where the Carcharodontosaurus can sleep. It can actually go into the shelter, which I'm glad for. I'm using these wooden pieces that, here... Wow, that was a lot of stuttering in one sentence. That look very modern. They don't fit the facade of the temple, but that's fine. They're not meant to. This is kind of a separate area. We have artificial lights in here and such. Which, the lighting does need a little bit of work in this game because it shines through the rocks, so the facade doesn't really work at nighttime. I might take out some of the lights later. But, yeah, this was an area of the building I was having a hard time filling. It's no big deal if it's not perfect. It's not the facade, again. So, I did want to lower down these planters because they look really weird, and the item select thing was being really buggy, and selecting other pieces, like underneath the pieces you're clicking on first, and then not deselecting stuff. You know, this is a semi-large save file at this point, so it's possible aside of that. I have no idea what the maximum amount of like piece count and stuff you can do in Prehistoric Kingdom is. I assume it's really high, but because I've never encountered any frame drops or anything while playing this game. I've never had any performance-related crashes. I don't even think I've had any crash. No, that's not true. The weather menu. Anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm putting a staff gate, even though we don't have staff infrastructure in this park. And that's, if it was my park, like, not a collaboration, I'd do staff infrastructure. It's just so hard to work in those systems to something like this. And, you know, this park does rely on force perspective in a lot of areas, not just my builds. Not just this one, too. I should have said that the other order around. The other way around? Yes, that is the language I speak, is English. So, yeah, there were... How many pieces is this temple? I think like 800? Which, something kind of crazy I was talking about was, this singular build is like nearly as many pieces as my last Evolution 2 park, which my last Evolution 2 park was like, a little over 8,000 pieces. And that was a small park, to be fair. I built it in like 25 hours. And that, by the way, that like crashed my Xbox building that Island Paradise park. Which, if you haven't watched that series, I highly recommend it. That was a fun series, despite its inconsistencies throughout the whole thing. It's still fun to watch. Better than World Park for sure. So yeah, there's a lot of the temple. Now came the hardest part of the build, which was, if you look at Angkor Wat and stuff, you have those, I don't know what the words are, they're not steeples, that's on church, but, towers, we'll call them towers. And I really did not know how to create these in Prehistoric Kingdom. We, don't really have the pieces for them, and I was able to create this kind, the square ones, just go like this, but that's not going to work for the bigger sections, bigger towers. So these work fine for decoration, but the building really has to be covered in these things. So I did find a way to do it eventually, which shows how adaptable Prehistoric Kingdom is by having these basic polygons that you can recolor and retexture. To an extent, obviously, that's not limited. But, yeah, you will notice a lot of variation in the color. I'm a professional talking person on YouTube. Anyway, so yeah, you can see what I did there was to create an uneven circle to get this kind of, well, I guess it is still an even circle, but you see what I did. And yeah, I was saying you'll notice a lot of different colors in the rock texture. Partially that was intentional. Partially that was the color palette doesn't save when you close the game and reopen it. And I wish you could save colors, like, this is my color for, at least within parks, so like, if you have a specific color of stuff that you want to use, like, for branding, but it doesn't save to your palette, and every time you have to go duplicate another piece that you used it on, and like, slightly change the color, and I kinda wish it worked like that. Right now it doesn't. Hopefully that's a thing they'll do in the future. So yeah, you can see how this temple's going. It's working quite well. I don't think the word is it a temple? I mean, I guess it's a temple now. Like Angkor Wat, I'm thinking of Angkor Wat. It's a temple now, right? Because it's now a Buddhist temple, but it was Hindu when it was built. So, I don't know what you call it. I mean, it's a, I should know this. I literally did a school project on, Buddhist temples once. Anyways, so yeah, just placing the last bits of this structure, which I have to say looks really nice, but think the game, not me, kind of thing, a little bit. So I actually don't have much more to say. You'll notice I'm just rambling about random stuff, but I've run out. Well, I haven't run out of stuff to ramble, but I've run out of things that are related to ramble about. I mean, it's kind of, this is at 10x speed, but it was still like 5 hours to build just this temple, so there's not that much to say about it. A lot of people say Prehistoric Kingdom is boring construction. Watch my Prehistoric Africa video that I released a couple months ago. So anyway, I'm just releasing these sleeping points in here. Big old pile of hay. I feel like something else should be here, because I think something else needs to be in this shelter, but I don't really know what else to do aside from like going real in depth and like doing water pipes and stuff and like having thermostats, and we're not doing that kind of stuff in this build. This isn't a hyper-realistic zoo or anything. So yeah, I'm just placing some lights around. I feel like maybe those should be gone, because if this is where he sleeps, you don't want lights on at night. So maybe I'll get rid of some of those. I think when I load back in next time, if I remember, I will delete some of those. But yeah, now, wow, we are only a little over halfway through this video. What I'm building is the underground viewing gallery, which will be in this cliff. And I'm trying to use the same beam color that I used in the Dilo builds. With those wooden structures, a lot of similar elements. I want this to be a pretty dark building. Lightly inspired by a gorilla viewing gallery that's at my zoo. And, you know, you're underground, you're inside of the cliff. Like, not like there's a building inside the cliff. It's supposed to kind of feel like you are literally inside of the cliff, just viewing it like an omnipotent being who's just invisibly observing, you know? So yeah, there is the completed temple, which I think looks pretty good, as I've said a lot of times already. So yeah, I decided to use, I was at first going to use concrete walls, but then I was like, what are you doing? We have the stone wall pieces now. That's literally exactly what you need to do. So you'll notice I slanted this out a little bit just because I can't build a building that's a perfect rectangular box. So I had to do that a little bit. This door obviously would lead underground back to... I guess it is fairly long to walk underground for the guests, but anyway, animal information signs which still don't work. That might be the save file though. We'll see whenever we start a new Prehistoric Kingdom build, which I think I talked about on live stream, was something that I want to start, not yet, but a second Prehistoric Kingdom build series. Not quite sure about that. We might wait till Wildlands is over, because it is kind of still a lot to do these builds. I don't think I could do 2 10-hour builds. Basically, that would be every week, so we'll probably wait till Wildlands is over, but we will do more Prehistoric Kingdom after that. And, yeah, speaking of Wildlands, this is my 4th episode in the zoo. I think we might only have 2 more episodes that I'm doing in this zoo. Could be more than that, who knows. But based on the area we've drawn out, we might be able to complete that in 18 episodes. It might be 21, might be 24. No promises. Anyway, what I'm doing right now in the temple is I'm adding some decals to make it feel old. It's supposed to be like it's an ancient temple that's part of the jungle. Make it feel like it was here when the zoo was built. And now every, yeah, anyways, you know what I mean. Covering an ivy piece of jungle plants and such. Just blending them back with the rock, because as I said, I want the jungle to feel expansive, so we end up, like, surrounding this by trees. I do think the ruined jungle looks fairly good. The ruined one isn't the version on the workshop, I put the clean one, but it's pretty easy to add the decals yourself if you really want to. I was able to do this in, like, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, which may sound like kind of a little while to just decorate a single building, but it really does not feel that long when you build in this game. It rarely feels like a long time. At least in the moment. Sometimes I'm like, I feel like I've been building for 5 hours and I've been building for 2, but you know. Those of you who play know what I mean. Well, those of you who enjoy playing, it's not everybody's game. Just like Planet Zoo isn't everybody's game. So, yeah. This build is just about done, I think. And this is, I think, the skip. Yeah, you'll see a bunch of rocks here. This is probably my favorite rock work I've done so far. It was kind of chaotic on live stream, but it was fun. Definitely show up to live streams. I think there might be another one soon. I don't plan to, like, shift over to a lot of live streaming or be doing it at a time. But, you know, from time to time, I'll try to give you guys warning if I plan to do a live stream so you know when it is and show up. But they're chill, they're fun. So I'm using some wetland trees here just because there is a lack of large trees in the tropical set. The tropical set is really good for decoration and planting and such. The only big trees we have are the kapok trees. Oh no, we need more trees in the game, which is ironic considering how many trees are in the game. And people talk about that as a huge positive of the game, and I agree. So yeah, here I'm using the foliage brush for once because this would take so long if I was individually placing it. So you'll see I'm choosing from the tropical set just to get ground foliage, which ends up looking decent. And you'll notice I did leave a good bit of open area. That's for the Carcharodontosaurus to walk around because it is. And so we do have this mount which can be viewed from the entrance, and now we know what to do with the entrance, and I think it creates a pretty cool view. Now the entrance is fully surrounded. Feel a lot better now that's done about the overall zoo. And this is literally just one habitat, and that took 10 hours, and it just is a tiny bit of the zoo. Really amazing game, Prehistoric Kingdom, but it does take a long time to build. And I think if we're shifting over to a lot of Prehistoric Kingdom, that may mean less videos, less frequent. You know, maybe some weeks there won't be a video, but that does mean the videos will be higher quality. You can tell me what you think about it, but to be honest, like, I'm gonna do whatever I enjoy doing, because if the channel isn't fun, why am I doing it? Kind of thing, you know? And it is fun. I'm not complaining about the channel at all. It's become just like, I wouldn't be making, how many videos do I have now? Like 120 videos? If I didn't enjoy doing it, and yeah. So I did end up using a lot of the ferns from the coastal sets. They do stand out a little bit because they're like pale, but they look pretty cool. And you'll notice I'm doing the ground foliage first. I'll talk about that if you want that a habitat tutorial. Why the order of building stuff, which is something I'm talking about in the future too. Also, watch the Island of Paradise Park series. So, something I was just reminded of, something I want in the game, which I think I've talked about before, is like speakers so you can play ambient sounds, bird sounds, maybe even music. That would be awesome to go along the path and have multiple biomes in one part, kind of thing. You know, there's not much ambience in the game right now. So yeah, here I'm adding those kapok trees, which you can sink into the ground and create fairly good forest coverage, but they need to be assisted by something else, which is why I used those beech trees, and also, what's the other ones I used? The big jungle trees that are swamp trees, these ones, but when I grow them, I don't remember what they're called. They look like the Jurassic Park trees. These are just crucial to building jungles, even though they're from the Wetlands set. So that's pretty much the end of the build. I did want to add more flowers. This ended up a lot more open than I was originally thinking, but there's not really much other way to do this. I enjoyed this build. End result was good. Not exactly what I'd planned, but when do we plan stuff on this channel? We don't make plans, especially not in Evolution 2. So yeah, thank you guys if you are somehow still here after 32 minutes of this poor narration. And I have a little bit of cinematics for you, so stick around to see these. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like the video. Stay tuned for the next episode from Jurassic next week. And stay tuned for Prehistoric Wildlands. Some very cool videos coming soon. Much requested videos also. Here's the Carcharodontosaurus. Honestly, might be my favorite. I'm not gonna say it's my favorite in Prehistoric Kingdom because all the models are like S+ tier. So, but it is one of my favorite dinosaurs. Absolutely love building for this guy. Tell me what you thought of the habitats. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna stop repeating my outros again. Stick around for this cinematic-ish, poorly constructed outro thingy-majigger cinematics. Yeah. If you want, download that thing from the workshop. Okay, I'm done talking, but like, it's not time for cinematics. Oh, there we go, cinematics. Okay, thank you, bye. Gosh, YouTuber.